Hey everybody, welcome to Sew with Joe. Today we're picking up where we left off last time, doing a corduroy patch on the upper thigh of my 20-plus-year-old jeans. So let's get into it. And then we can get to the positive world news. Still have a little bit of thread left on there, so I'm going to start in this corner, work my way around. First stitch in. Alright, well, good world news for today. And this absolutely affects the world. And that is that there's a company now recycling lithium batteries. So all these batteries that are being used in absolutely everything these days can now be recycled. And I always assumed that they could be already. Cheers. Because the thought of not being able to recycle those lithium batteries is pretty staggering. So the upside of them being able to be recycled is pretty amazing. Yeah, I just assumed that they were able to recycle this technology, and otherwise it wouldn't have been as popular as it has become. But I guess the world, if you build a better battery, and the world will beat a path to your door. And thankfully now there's a company called Li-Cycle, L-I, like lithium from the table of elements. Li-Cycle. That's how it is. It's Li-Cycle. Li-Cycle. And they are able to salvage 95% of the materials in a lithium battery. That's pretty massive, 95%. One thing I always find is interesting about articles when you read them online is that there's a difference when people address places in the United States versus those in Canada. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but this article is a great example of it, because there are two of these recycling, or the Li-Cycle company has two major locations, and one is in Rochester, New York, okay, because everybody knows where New York is, and the other one is in Canada. And I've noticed this in media my entire life, that if some places referring to a place in the US, they will name the city and the state. If they are naming something in Canada, it's either just Canada or in Toronto, Canada. Why not just say the name of the city and province? You know, especially when you're dealing with a worldwide audience. You know, say Rochester, New York, United States of America. And then say, you know, I didn't look up where it was in Canada, but let's say, you know, since Winnipeg is a hub, let's say it's in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Or you could just say in the US and Canada. It would make it much more brief. It just seems there's a prejudice against Canada. It's like, oh, where is that in the States? Oh, Rochester, New York. Oh, where is that in Canada? Yeah, Canada. So, media, print media, take note. Did you know that there's actually a place called the Black Forest where Black Forest cake comes from? Sorry, this is just a random thought from my head. Went from naming places in the world to the Black Forest, and there is actually a Black Forest cake that comes from there, and that's what it is. I wonder if Black Forest ham is from the same place. Must be. Anyway, random little bits of knowledge there. So lithium battery recycling, like we were talking about, what they are able to pull out of those batteries is lithium, of course. There's also nickel, cobalt, graphite, copper, and aluminum. Lithium recovery obviously will reduce the strain on the lithium mines, and lithium mines, I've heard, are very aggressive, not very environmentally friendly types of mines, so that would be a big bonus worldwide, saving or reducing the demand for lithium mines. And right now copper, one of the other recoverable metals, is in massive demand right now because there's so many, well, copper is used in everything, for conductors, motors, all sorts of things. And then I think there was a massive dam built in China that was using a large percentage of the planet's copper supply. So copper prices have just spiked. I think last I heard we were getting about $4 a pound. It's Canadian dollars. And also being able to recover aluminum out of those batteries is major, because aluminum, the process involved in making aluminum is pretty intense. There's a huge amount of power required, a huge amount of heat involved in that process. So when you look at your pop can and you think, oh, should I throw this in the garbage or should I throw this in the recycling? Just think of the amount of heat that needs to happen. And that would be wasted if you threw that in the garbage. That power has to come from somewhere. Coffee. In case you're new to the channel, that was my wife, Sarah. She brings me a coffee when I do these videos every morning. Oh, cheers. Now this recycling company, Li-Cycle, has gained a fair bit of attention. So much so that the company LG, Life's Good, LG has invested 50 million, hard to say the number, $50 million LG invested in Li-Cycle. So if you get a major company like that making an investment like that, you know it's coming, you know it's the future. And that is definitely going to save the planet with all the lithium batteries that are out there. Yeah, it's insane. Got little lithium batteries and everything. life cycle also has had a car manufacturer, and the article I read didn't. Oh, actually, it did name. I forgot the name of them. The car manufacturer. They have signed up with Li-Cycle to have them produce the batteries for their cars, and also for Li-Cycle to close the loop and recycle those batteries once their end of life has been reached. So that's the one neat part now that they seem to be taking into account that I've always thought of back then, back when EVs, the electric vehicle movement was starting. It's like, what are you going to do with all these batteries? And, well, now that question is being answered. I think one of the big places that money is going to be in the future is doing EV conversion kits. So basically being able to take an existing vehicle, take the existing engine out of it, replace it with an electric motor, and away you go. I think the best way to do that is to leave everything else in the vehicle except for the motor. Take out anything involved with the motor and the fuel system. I would even say I would even go so far as to say leave the radiator and leave the cooling system in, because that electric motor is going to get awfully hot. And if you can run some sort of a cooling off of your existing cooling system to cool that electric motor, you'll make your electric motor last that much longer. And I like the model of motor where you're still, or EV where you're still shifting, where your either your automatic transmission is still shifting or you're shifting it manually. If you were doing it from an automatic transmission, you'd have to figure out some way to translate, because a lot of them are run off of vacuum. You'd have to figure out some way of translating engine RPM to vacuum, or have a computer telling it when to shift rather than vacuum, or having a computer actuating some vacuum going to the transmission to make it shift. I'd probably just stick with manual transmissions for the early stages and figure that stuff out later. Because then if you just replace the engine with a motor, then you still have all of your gears. You'll retain your efficiency. I feel that a lot of these EVs that have the motors built into the wheels and only have one speed, I feel that's a mistake. I think to keep a vehicle, keep that electric motor in its optimal operating range, you need to keep the right amount of drag on the vehicle, and if you can reduce that drag by shifting gears, or take your revolutions down on your electric motor, then it's not pushing as hard. Of course, it's all a balance, right? Because at a certain point you'd be consuming a lot of power if your gear ratio was out of balance. But that's the other thing. Then you're starting off in first gear rather than starting off in your highest gear. It makes more sense to me. So I think the best way of going about it is just take the motor out, put in an electric motor, and then figure out the controls for that electric motor, and just shift manually, have your pedal be a varostat or a rheostat, and have it just control what's going to your motor, and then you figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think EVs have to be complicated. And then if you can buy recycled lithium batteries, the cost is probably going to be much lower as well, because you're not mining that lithium. You're not paying for the mining process. All you're doing is paying for the recycling process. And as long as that recycling process is less expensive than mining, then we'll be ahead. And I'm just waiting for the next big jump ahead in battery technology. The thin, flexible, biodegradable batteries that I spoke of a few episodes ago is a really interesting way to go about it. But it doesn't sound like they're overly efficient yet. Like, they're decently efficient. I don't think that they're at the level of lithium batteries yet. That's a difficult place to be, because lithium, for the weight, oh man. Like, I went out and I purchased a motorcycle battery. It's a lithium motorcycle battery. And the weight savings is just ridiculous. Like, a normal motorcycle battery is, oh, I don't want to say this wrong. How heavy would that be? About between 5 and 10 pounds. And the lithium batteries are like a pound or 2. So the weight savings is staggering. And that was the big thing holding EVs back before, is that you had to haul all these batteries around, and the battery power output to weight ratio was not there. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is lighter batteries, or batteries that hold more charge, or preferably both. What I'm looking forward to is wireless electricity. Wireless electricity. The concept has been around for a long time. I'm just waiting for somebody to be able to make it real. Because then, instead of you needing batteries, period, you just connect into the magnetic grid, and it pushes your vehicle along. I don't know if anybody's seen the hoverboards Back to the Future. They actually made one, just with magnetism. Cheers. So if you can do that with a car, you don't even need tires. You won't have any wearable parts. It'd be like buying a cell phone. You know, you buy it, no consumable items other than the battery. And if the battery's recyclable, then great. That takes a lot of that strain out of the environment for that. And just buy a car like you buy a cell phone. You know, it's the iCar 212, you know, version 212. Every once in a while they just shut down and require an update. Cruising along and boom. Stop randomly. The blue screen of death becomes an entirely different meaning. A bit of good world news if you like hummingbirds. If you live in a place that gets cold, and there is something you can do to help those hummingbirds when it does get cold, because, well, while there are a lot of hummingbirds that migrate, there are some that don't. So if you notice that late in the season, you still have hummingbirds around. You might have those that stick around all year. And they need food sources when it gets cold. So if you have a hummingbird feeder out, the way that you can help your hummingbirds to winter is to keep your feeder going all year. Now, depending where you live, this might be asking a lot of you. If it gets down to, you know, -30, then, or let's keep it universal. If it gets down to -40 where you are, then your hummingbirds probably aren't sticking around. But if you're in a place where it's a little less aggressive of a climate, then you could be able to help them. If you, like I say, if you notice that they are still around later in the season, and if you would usually take your hummingbird feeder down for winter because it freezes, try to keep it from freezing. Try to leave it up all year, because if you still have hummingbirds coming around late in the season, they might start relying on that food source. Now, from the article I read, they won't stay in an area because there's a feeder there. Like if they are the type to migrate, you won't dissuade their migration by having a feeder. Cheers. So if you do enjoy the hummingbirds and you want to help them get through the winter, and it does get a little chilly where you are to the point that your sugar water mix freezes, there are a number of things you can do to keep from freezing your hummingbird food. You can do stuff like having the hummingbird feeder right up against your window, against the outside of the window, so that the heat transferring through the window keeps the hummingbird food from freezing. You can take a small light or a number of small incandescent lights. Not LEDs don't give off enough heat, but if you take something like a traditional Christmas light and wrap them around your feeder, or even put Christmas lights around the feeder and then wrap aluminum foil, tin foil around it to keep that heat in. Basically anything you can do to keep that mixture from freezing. Then you can potentially help your hummingbirds winter through a little easier. Now it is important, if you do live somewhere that it does get too cold to keep your mixture from freezing, then it's important not to use a feeder, because if there is a hummingbird population which populates your area, then they will have that on their food path, and they can come to rely on it to a point. And if all of a sudden that food source isn't there, then the hummingbirds that you're trying to save, you're doing them quite the disservice. To put it in a kind way. So you could really help them out by doing nothing. If that's the area that you live in, that gets to the point that they don't have their own food source over winter, and they're relying on you, and all of a sudden that food source is gone because it's frozen or you take it down, then you're having the opposite effect that you're trying to feed them and save them, and then you're just taking it away. I love hummingbirds. They're so cute. They're just tiny, 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 and so fast. It amazes me that they survive at all. Just these little sugar fiends. Basically no energy storage on them whatsoever. Just as they consume nectar, they burn it off by flying to the next plant. And the frantic cycle of needing that sugar. Carries on. It's pretty wild. And we're kind of the same way, just on a different scale. You know, like, yeah, we have some fat storage, we can survive for a little while, but we're just consuming energy. And if we don't consume energy for a while, we don't put out energy. You know, they just have a slightly more truncated timeline to their lifespan. Okay, this patch is so close to done. I gotta finish this off. I'm gonna tie off here, grab a little more thread. I didn't grab quite enough thread, and then I can finish this up. And then I think these jeans are wearable again. That's one thing I never realized, is that hummingbirds actually do stick around some places. I thought they were all migratory. Apparently, I was incorrect. If you've never watched a documentary on hummingbirds or anything like that, I urge you to. They're really fascinating little creatures. You know, find something narrated by Sir David Attenborough and away you go. Cheers. Alright, almost there. So now going back to recycling lithium batteries. Now, recycling your cell phones is that much more important. A lot of people just hoard their old cell phones. That's another thing you can bring, like if it is still a decent cell phone, just unlock it, bring it to thrift, let somebody buy it. Or sell it, you know, whatever. There's a big aftermarket or second-hand market for cell phones. But if you are just going to throw it away, just throw it into a thrift box and someone will make use of it. And thrift stores generally have pretty good causes that they support. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So try to find one that's got a good cause behind it. tend to support the MCC thrift stores. Those are the Mennonite faith-based. And there are some that support missions like that. There are some that support like prison ministry. Just people trying to help people. Alright. We can pull the pins on this one. Call that an episode. Doctor, I'm having an episode of So with Joe. Oh no. What are we at now? 55? Cool. It's the longest YouTube series I've done. Especially on the daily. So, there it is. So, there it is. So, there it is. Brown corduroy patch. This was actually from the bottom portion of the leg of a pair of brown corduroy pants. And, yeah, so I put them in upper thigh, in a high wear place. A place that I didn't think was as much of a high wear place as it is. But apparently it is, so it is, and there it is. And yeah, it was just coming through here. Getting really, really cold right there. And now it's all covered up. Keep the draft down, be warm, and it'll explode nicely from behind here as this tears open. I like having my jeans set up so that they peel away, that the layers peel away, and reveal what I've done underneath. Ooh, no, my leg has gotten all twisted up here. Something has gone horribly wrong. Yeah, sometimes you're not quite sure what hole to stick it in on these things. Alright, so this time around. Got the beeline patch in up here so I can use my pocket more readily. And thigh patch. I like it. So, thanks a lot for joining me. Cheers. I really do appreciate the time we get to spend together. It's always nice. Till next time, keep chillin'. Don't forget your cookie. Peace.